Hey, welcome back E3 members, and you're in for a treat today. And yes, we're in the E3 hangar today. So you're probably asking, why are we in the E3 Aviation hangar, or I should say the E3 hangar, is because not only do we have a great guest on today, founder of E3 Firearms, Adam Painchaud, also is a retired Air Force, so among other things. And glad to have Adam here today. And we're going to be covering a few things today on this episode. So one is Adam's going to open up with a little bit of current affairs and some things going on in the world we should be thinking about. Two is we're going to be talking about zeroing your red dot. This is a big topic for me. Everything I own now has red dots on it. So I have some of my stuff here, and I'm looking forward to talking about that. And then we're going to talk a little bit about customizing your EDC. So around those topics, we might shift them a little bit. And then we're also going to talk about firearms in your private aircraft and flying with your firearms across country. So looking forward to that. But first, want to welcome Adam. Hey, Adam. Thanks for coming on.
Hey,
today.
Brian. Yeah, good to hear. Good to be here, brother. Hey, E3 brothers and sisters out there. Good to see you tonight. And thanks for joining us. Going to be a fun call. I love the backdrop, man. That just looks awesome.
How's this, huh? And this is real.
Very cool. That's cool. You going to take me up on that or what?
Yeah, just don't eat breakfast first.
yeah. I'm going to have to bring a bowl or a bag or something.
We just flew one of the top supervisors in the FAA last week. He wanted to go for a ride, and he was laying on this floor here for about a half hour after we landed.
That's cool.
It was a fun time. It's a great time. And then for E3 members, E3 Aviation members know about our Bonanza and our other planes and stuff. And then this is kind of our fun plane. This is the Extra 300 that we have a blast in. We do a lot of content in this, and we just did a really cool episode about parachutes and getting our parachutes repacked and stuff. So it's fun to be here and be in this hangar. But I thought this was so awesome. You being in the Air Force, this would be a great backdrop for us to talk about my second and first favorite topic, firearms. But I do want to say, Master Yoda, Adam, I just want to let you know everything here on my table is clear.
Excellent. Look at that cue. The honey badger right there, looking good.
Honey badger. So everything's clear. There's no ammo here, so I just wanted to let you know. Trying to be responsible for you.
You should get a scabbard for that honey badger for that plane behind you. That'd be cool. Just have it right at your side. That'd be cool.
Yeah, for sure. I should do that in the Bonanza for sure.
Yeah.
But what's been going on in the world? I know you wanted to talk a little bit about some current affairs and things.
Yeah, I mean, unless you've been hiding under a rock out there, all of us are well aware of things are a little bit of turmoil out there, as you can imagine, or as you're aware of. But we're used to that. Things ebb and flow as far as current affairs and things like that. I've had a lot of people I know, or people who know me in recent weeks, I'd say over the past 10, 15 days, like, hey, Adam, I really feel like I need to stock up on some ammo, or, I've been thinking about getting an AR-15 for years. I think, now's the time. And I'm like, what are you guys doing? Like, now is not the time, because now prices are inflated again, because of that. Everybody's out there buying. I was at White Birch Armory last night in Dover, New Hampshire, teaching a class, and they said the ammo's flying off the shelf by the case. Gun sales are through the roof, because everybody's got that knee-jerk impulse buying, and it's understandable, and we know that happens. However, just trying to make that little extra effort to just be a little bit more prepared, and always kind of have what you need on hand, versus those knee-jerk type of purchases, because like, for instance, now is not necessarily the time to buy ammo, because now ammo prices are on their way back up, whereas in the past year or so they've kind of evened out a little bit, actually quite a bit. Ammo's been readily available. It's been priced reasonable. Same with guns. And now I think we're probably going to start to see that uptick again. Just because of the state of the world, essentially. And
I think that's also a point that the whole point is you should always be prepared. You should never have to get to a point where something like this happens, or the scuttlebug's going on, and all of a sudden you think you got to go get prepared. The whole point is you should always be prepared. and not.
And you hit the nail on the head, Brian. Absolutely. The acts that or the horrible acts of terrorism that occurred over in Israel should be very eye opening to all of us. We think Israel is way over there; it's on the other side of the pond. Obviously there are friends and allies. But we think of it as being so far away, so detached, but it's really not. And for a country to literally have be attacked like that with like ground forces and things like that is very scary. I certainly don't want to jump on the paranoid wagon at all. Paranoid and prepared are two very different things, and definitely we need to be prepared. We don't want to live our life paranoid. That doesn't make any sense. But that should be eye-opening. That we need to make sure we got what we need. Good sustainment of rations for the family. Everything squared away, and we are prepared to protect ourselves and our family if need be. Not paranoid, but prepared, so very eye-opening though. So disturbing events, but these things come and go, and hopefully in due time these we'll nail these terrorists down, and we'll be all right.
Well, what it did do, and you just made a good point, is in my family anyway, it made us step back up again, get back to proficient, go back, check our equipment. Went back and checked a couple of the firearms that my red dot's on that we're going to talk about today, and the battery was dead. I haven't checked it in 8 months. The whole point is this at least got us back as a family back to, make sure we're carrying every day. Even when we're running down to the store, because, we get lax once in a while, we kind of go up and down, but it really just kind of renewed us to get more alert and paying more attention. Even going in the restaurants, we just talked about the other day, we would start to get lax again of where we're sitting in restaurants and things like that. Mm-hmm. But now we get back to, no, I want to make sure I sit over there, my back to the wall and my face to the door. So we stepped up our awareness a little bit more. I mean, we don't have to be paranoid or anything, but that's just how we operate,
And you need to, and that's these type of things happen in the world right now. Do exactly that. They keep us on point. They get us to check our gear and things like that, like you just mentioned. And complacency is tough. It's hard to stay switched on. And of course, I certainly don't advocate being switched on all the time. There's a situational awareness volume button or volume dial that you need to kind of ebb and flow based on your circumstances, what you're doing and things like that. But these things going on, they certainly get us thinking about, okay, do I have what I need? Is all my stuff squared away? Am I wired up? That definitely
us being pilots and you in the Air Force, complacency, as we know as pilots, is the worst thing that you can do as a pilot. So that carries forward into our other areas as well. Can you? So I know that one of the things we're talking about are our red dots and zeroing, and I got to tell you, and maybe you on camera here, you can give me some pointers too, because one of the things that I've had a hard time a lot is practicing enough where I can get up on target with my red dot where it needs to be, getting that muscle memory in place. And that's been hard for me, especially for the smaller firearms we have with the smaller red dots on it. Like, that's been a really tough thing for me to get in place. So I'd love to hear your thoughts about zeroing the red dots, but the second part of that is, what's the best thing that we should be practicing to be able to get our muscle memory up to a place where we can get up on target quickly with the red dot?
Yeah, that's a good question, and that is definitely, when I transition folks from like iron sights, like I've got right here on this pistol, to a red dot type of sighting system. When I run transition courses for police, military units, things like that, it is it's definitely, there's a learning curve. The learning curve is usually fairly short, but especially if you have prior training on like a rifle, an AR type platform or something like that with a red dot, it makes it a little bit easier to understand. But the point that you just brought up, Brian, of kind of like seeing the dot, like where is the dot? That is something that some folks struggle with a little bit, or a lot of folks struggle with, I should say. Where I see it most actually is for one-handed shooting. Two-handed shooting, it's a little bit easier to get up and see that dot quickly. Where I personally struggle with it is, with one hand, hand, whether that's my strong hand or my other hand. That's where I sometimes struggle with it, especially weak hand. If I'm doing drills and I drive out with that weak hand, just, where's the dot? It takes me that split second to find it. However, what I do, what I can tell you what I do with like those one-handed drills when I'm training with that is I'm just looking for my iron sights like I always have. And when I do, my dot's there. So I would present the gun as you normally do, and don't try to like hunt for the dot. All right, just aim in and see your iron sights, whether you actually have backup iron sights on your gun or not. You're used to shooting with iron sights anyway if you're making that transition. So just see you look for that rear sight and line it up with your front sight, you're gonna see that the dot is there because the dot's gonna be just over it. Like I handed a great example of that, Brian. The other day I handed I think it was this gun right here. I handed this gun to a worker of mine who hasn't done the transition to dots yet, and he picked it up and he was doing that. He's like, where I can't see the dot. And I said, well, just put back down. I said, I want you. He's got been a shooter and handling guns for 15 years or so. So certainly not new to guns, but new to red dots. I said, just bring the gun up and just find your sights, your front and rear sight like you always have. Just do that. And he did it. And I said, you see the dot? He was like, oh yeah, there it is. It's right there. So really, I guess the answer is don't do anything different than you always have if you're used to shooting those iron sights, and that will get you out of that trying to hunt for it. And I definitely do that when I'm shooting one-handed drills. I'm just bringing it up and I'm finding those iron sights and the dots right there. And if time is of the essence, like if I'm doing drills and I've only got a second and a half or something like that to drive it up with a strong hand and break a shot, to tell you the truth, I don't even really care if I see the dot or not. I'm finding those irons and I know I'm where I need to be.
Well, because if you needed to do that and come off that quick in a second or two, you're probably close enough that you don't need your red dot.
Exactly, not an issue. And then you got the distance factor there that you're going to bring into the equation. I mean, if you're shooting at 3 yards, 5 yards, 7 yards, it's not so much an issue. It's where the red dot really shines is when you get back in that 10-yard and beyond range. Like you're at 10 yards, you're at 15, 25 yards, 50 yards with a pistol. That's where the red dot really shines as far as knowing exactly where your gun is pointed, as opposed to figuring out iron sights and things like that. So that's where they really shine.
Okay. Now you're talking about getting up on target with your red dot. Now I might be doing a bad habit, because I know that one thing that I have been doing is I come up and I can't see it. I squeeze a little bit more on the bottom and it seems to come into place for me. I don't know if that's a bad habit or whatever. I heard it somewhere. It seems to work for me, but I don't want to have to do that and rely on that every time. So I like your point of, if you didn't have a red dot and you came up on it with your iron sights, it's the same thing. I mean, that's what I should be practicing.
And it's an easy answer, Brian, because you've been shooting a long time and you've run iron sights, your whole life up until, last couple of years running a dot, so you just do that and it's going to be there. So it works out pretty good.
So zeroing these red dots.
Yeah.
Is there a big difference in that versus zeroing our rifles?
Well, like zeroing a red dot on a pistol is very similar to like zeroing a red dot on this AR right here. It's very similar. There are a little bit of differences. First off, I want you to understand that for our members out there and anybody listening, zeroing a red dot is actually a thing. So you need to. We don't want to just maybe we buy like a SIG P320 and it comes with the red dot already on it, or you buy a package where the dot comes already on the gun as opposed to you put it on after or something like that. Don't assume in any way, shape, or form that thing is zeroed. I can tell you it is absolutely, it's definitely not zeroed. You guys hear me okay still?
Yep.
So,
great.
Still got me, Brian?
Yeah. Yeah.
Sorry, I think I just turned myself down a little bit.
It's funny you said that, because we did an interview with Tonto recently, and he was assuming his rifle was zeroed when he was up on the roof in that 13 hours, and he was literally, people don't know this, but he was 3 feet off on his rifle being zeroed when he got up on up on that roof. So,
and that's significant. Yeah. So you need to zero it. So what I recommend is this. First off, when you get, if it's a gun you already have some iron sights on it, and you know that those are dialed in. When you get your dot on there, what you can do, I literally did it with this gun over here. So you can't see it, obviously. I did it with a gun earlier that I just mounted a red dot on for the first time on that particular gun. I knew the iron sights were lined up. So what I did is I mounted it was a Trijicon RMR in this case. And all I did is I looked through it right here. I'm in my shop right now. And I just looked through it and I knew that the dot needed to move. So I just made the adjustments and I brought the dot to the point where it's at the tip of my front sight. And it's lined up with my front and rear sight. That way I know the dot's pretty close. Now that way, when I go to the range, I'm not just burning through a mag of ammo and I'm off target or something like that. So you can kind of get it close by just bringing it in line with your iron sights, your front and rear sight, if you do have iron sights that are visible with your red dot. So that's one thing that I always do that will help in the process of zeroing. Now, once you've done that, the distance that I recommend zeroing at is initially I recommend a 15-yard zero. And I'll just take, I had a bullseye target around here somewhere. I'll take a bullseye target, like, just a,
So
you
from
can use anything. I mean,
this fin to the front of this is 15 feet.
Yeah, that's 15 feet, so 15 yards.
Oh, yards. Yep.
So yeah, I would do 15 yards. Is a good zero distance for a red dot initially. Just using a bullseye target. Have something pretty small in the center of that bullseye, or you don't have to use a bullseye. Use whatever you want. But I prefer like a 1-inch circle or a 1-inch square that I'm shooting at 15 yards as an aiming reference, because these red dots are very precise. So I'll do that at 15 yards, and then I'll obviously adjust so my point of aim and my point of impact is the same at 15 yards. That means where my dot is right here to where my bore line is, where the bullet comes out, those two will intersect perfectly, and I'll get point of aim, point of impact hits at 15. All right. And then what I'll do after that, once I get it dialed in at 15 and I feel like I'm grouping well, it's hitting exactly where I want at 15. It's hitting that 1-inch square, for instance. Now what I'll do is I'll spot check it. I'll bring the target out, or I'll move back to 25 yards, and then I'll check it at 25 and even 50 if I have the opportunity to do that. So that's how I like to do it. Now, what I would recommend that when you're zeroing the red dot is do it in you don't have to be benched, but do something to support your gun. It's okay if you're just standing offhand, just standing normal shooting, two-hand, not supported. You can do that. I feel comfortable doing that most of the time, but try to take, like, Brian, what Brian's doing right there, try to take the human effects of movement and things like that out of the equation when you're doing a zero, because you want absolute perfect circumstances when you're zeroing. So if you can bench your gun or rest it on something, that's obviously going to be ideal for zeroing, whether you're zeroing a rifle or a pistol. And that you want it as steady as possible, so you can take out that human error aspect the best you can. And obviously we need to be nice and clean on the trigger, of course, as well. But that's the sequence that I recommend. Now, all your red dots out there, I've got two different ones right up here, but take this Trijicon RMR again, for instance. No different than the Delta Point Pros or the Romeos or the Burses, whatever you got out there. They're all going to have adjustments on them, and what you're going to have is a elevation adjustment, which is usually on the top, and then you'll have a windage adjustment, which is typically on the side. And with that, obviously, you're going to make the adjustments accordingly. Now, I don't personally get into the minutia of, one click is going to move me, so much distance, at certain distances that I'm at. I game it a little bit. I'll move it a little bit. I'll read the manual and understand that, but I'll move it a little bit, make my adjustments accordingly. But fine movements initially to get it dialed in. Something I would recommend doing with red dots when you're zeroing a red dot, whether it's a rifle red dot or a pistol red dot, doesn't matter, is turn the intensity way down. I had my SWAT team out this Thursday last week, and we got some new ammunition for our SWAT rifles. So we wanted to zero it, obviously, a different brand we went with essentially, and we were doing a zero, and one of the guys was having issues just getting that that pinpoint precision he needed. And I looked at his dot, and his intensity was way up, meaning the brightness on his dot was like cranked way up. So when you look through that,
So it's kind of fuzzy.
have that like. Yeah, well, yeah, it makes it kind of fuzzy, and then it almost makes the dot like look bigger, and like you got like spinies all over it, like it looks like the sun. So you just turn the intensity way down. So my recommendation for zero is turn it way down, so you literally just barely see it. You see it, but it's nice and dim, and and at that point it'll be very precise. And that makes a big difference. I mean, that could be the difference of an inch or two, depending on what distance you're zeroing at, especially with a rifle. So that's the sequence I'd go through as far as zero, and that's the sequence I do go through and train. For zeroing a red dot is that procedure right there.
Okay, perfect. That's good to know.
Yeah, so it's pretty straightforward, and there's a little bit of trial and error with it. Like you said, the first time you do it, you may be like overcompensating, like you're going way too many clicks, So just find movements, If you find your let's say you're 4 or 5 inches off to the left, and you move a couple clicks, and well then times that by 5 or 6, go 10, 15 clicks and see what that does, and it brings you way on the other side, then, just cut that in half, right? And it's kind of like a process of elimination. Obviously, you don't want to be out there burning through, boxes of ammo, zeroing your pistol. Yeah, true. Yeah, why not? Yeah. So I can tell you the one thing that will absolutely help you. I did it on this pistol just 2 days ago or so. This is a Shadow Systems MR920, basically one of the Glock clones, and it's got an RMR on it. But I just mounted this RMR on it just a couple of days ago, and I knew the iron sights on it were dead on. So all I did is I mounted that up right here in my shop, and I just looked through it, and I made the adjustments so that my dot was lined up with my iron sights precisely. And then when I brought it out to the range the next day, which was yesterday, it was like I only had to move it just a little bit at the 15-yard line to get it dialed in, and then spot checked at 25 and 50. So pretty straightforward.
So you can't beat just getting out in the range and doing it, right? Because I know that there's also a lot of the laser tools that you can put inside the barrel, and then you sight into that. I mean, I've tried those before. They haven't been great, but I mean, is that still an option?
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, I understand that, a lot of folks don't have range access. I'm spoiled, I think, and Brian, you're spoiled. We have ranges we can go to. If that's not easy for you to do, the bore sight thing works pretty well. I mean, doing what I did what I explained with the iron sights is going to get you pretty dang close, like within inches, literally. But using like a bore sight, a laser device that you put down the barrel. So now you just literally back up in a house, find a blank wall, put something up on a wall, and aim that laser or point the gun. Of course, the laser is going to be pointed out there, and then look at where your dot is. And all you need to do is bring your dot to that laser at whatever distance, say 10, 15 yards, and then you're going to be there. And chances are, I've used those quite a bit, especially with rifles. They work really well. It will save you ammo when you do go to the range to zero, and it's going to get you where you need to be. I always suggest spot checking it when you can make time to get to a range, but those devices actually work really well.
Yeah, I agree. I'll tell you one thing, and I want to get your opinions. One thing I see a lot is, especially people that are new to firearms, down here and, well, wherever. I have friends and stuff, young ladies and different people, because it's been skyrocketing. The females are really getting more and more into carry. But they think that the solution is, I'm going to go get my first gun and automatically just put a red dot on there, and then all of a sudden that's going to make their life easier. And when I see them at the range, it's making their life worse. So it's like, my point is not that red dots aren't good, but it's not a substitute. It's not a substitute for training, being on that range and getting that muscle memory and getting up on there. And then I think the red dot is maybe a little bit better, yeah?
Yeah, so a red dot will make shooting easier from the aspect of there's no guessing or question about how do I line these sights up. So the major advantage of a red dot is that you literally have, instead of 3 things to line up, like a target, a front sight, and a rear sight. In this case, you literally just have a dot that you're putting where you want the bullet to go. It's so simple. So it's aesthetically pleasing on the eyes to just put that dot wherever you want. And that's all you need to do. Like, teaching a kid how to shoot for the first time ever. And if they're using a red dot, you say, yeah, see that dot, buddy? Yeah, well, put that dot where you want the bullet to go. Oh, okay, cool. And now you can focus on the hard stuff, like this, like moving a trigger. So yeah, you're absolutely right, Brian. Like the dot will make it easier on your eyes in as far as the learning of understanding how to line your sights up, because it's not really sights, it's a dot, right? But you still have to train with the trigger, because you can have a perfect sight picture, your dot's where it needs to be, and if you have a horrible trigger press, well, you're still going to miss your target, right? Or a horrible presentation to the target, you're still going to get those misses. So you still absolutely need to train. It will make it easier on the eyes as far as lining things up, and more precise for lining things up, but it's not going to make you a better shooter. You still need to understand fundamentals. And absolutely, I definitely think you should understand how to use iron sights as well. Even though they probably are going to the wayside a lot on a lot of guns, but it's still an important concept to understand if you had to revert to that.
Perfect. Anything else on red dots we should talk about?
Yeah. Actually, something I was having a conversation with, geeking out a little bit, as I call it, with my some of my gun buddies, my fellow gun instructors I work with, and one of them, we were talking the other day, and this is kind of something going on in the industry a little bit, is the red dot quality out there. Like, the quality of red dot optics now is just really, really good. You got battery life that's 50,000 plus hours or so, 80,000 hours, which is years, right? And they're very robust, they're durable, they do well both in the rifle platforms and the pistol platforms. They're working really good. So the question is, do I still need backup iron sights? So I take this rifle right here. I got a aim point T1. I mean, that's a $800 red dot right there. That's a top of the line red dot, incredible battery life, extremely durable. You could hammer a nail with that thing, but I still have a backup front and rear sight. I personally haven't, and I think maybe I just need to start overcoming it. I personally haven't got to the point where I'm like comfortable taking the iron sights off yet, even though yeah, exactly like that. But I think I probably could. I mean, that's an EOTech right there, right? EOTechs are incredible sights, so that.
Yeah, we shoot the hell out of this gun, and it's always on. We've never had a problem with losing our red dot. I mean, we've had to change the battery once in years, but I got to tell you, a good red dot, I'm not worried anymore. And I hear you, old school, I feel like I want to have my iron sights on there. But this is probably the first rifle in all of my rifles that I've been 100% confident, feeling like I don't need to have my iron sights. But I think it's also more because it's an EOTech. This thing has just been rock solid.
Yeah, like you got the name brands out there, EOTech, Aimpoint, and obviously there's some others, Leupold. There's some great names out there, and they make very robust equipment. Here's what is leading to, Brian. Here it is. Here's what's leading me to my answer for a no shit like gun that you need to rely your life on for long term. And if I had to pick one gun and that's the only gun and I got to go to battle with it, do I want iron backup sights or not? I think the answer is yes, right? So if you tell me, hey, you can have this AR-15, you can build it out how you want it, that's the only gun you get to go into battle, to go in intentionally into harm's way, and it could be a long duration, I feel like I'm gonna have backup iron sights on there. Like because it doesn't take up any space. The weight is nominal, and the same thing with pistol. For carrying around town, having 2 guns on me, so I already got that redundancy. For general purpose, I think we're probably past needing iron sights, but for that, that gun that is your ultimate survival gun, I personally am not quite there yet. Even though I know the quality is there, I'm personally I'm not there yet in completely removing the backup sights. But
a point you just made, though, is my point that, I could have that attitude, but if I stuck this in a drawer and I didn't touch it for 2 years, and then all of a sudden I want to pull it out, then the battery's dead. I don't have my iron sights. So I think part of it has to do with how good are you at staying on top of your equipment, and making sure you're checking it, and every month your batteries are good. Or, I mean, like I said, I went 8 months because this is a motion red dot.
Hmm.
So every time this gun moves, the red dot comes on. So
Yeah.
even though 8 months is a long time, still it got to a point where I wanted to get up on at the range and the red dot was gone. So I think
Yeah.
your point is very valid if you're somebody that is astute and staying on top of your equipment, you know?
Yeah, yep, absolutely. Like if it's my teaching gun, especially back in the day when I was teaching just like every day, all day, I was talking to, some of my fellow friends and full-time instructors down at the SIG Academy. And those guys are on the range all day, every day. They have dedicated training guns that are built out like their duty guns, their operational guns, but they don't have iron sights on a lot of their duty, their training guns because they don't need them. All right, so they're on a range. Just go get another battery and throw it in there. So maybe it's not a big deal for a lot of folks. But yeah, good point, Brian. And good quality batteries. Careful about like just buying bulk batteries on like Amazon or something like that. Make sure you're buying good quality batteries like the Energizer lithiums or something like that. A good quality lithium battery that is going to last, and it's a fresh battery. And something that I do with mine, or I feel like I'm in the regime, is I change out my red dot batteries annually, whether they need them or not.
Exactly.
That's what I do. For my SWAT team, my PD, the police department, that is the same thing. Even though that battery could last 3 to 4 plus years, we change them out annually, whether it needs it or not, because a battery is what, a couple bucks for a lithium little hockey puck battery. Might as well, right? Might as well change them out annually, whether they need them or not.
It's like
is
when you get
good advice.
a break in a gunfight, and you can reload with a full mag. Same kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly. Yep, exactly.
Exactly.
It's something, like you get a brand new gun with a red dot on it, and red dot's on. Think how long has that been sitting in the package and moving around, especially if it's motion activated. You may even need to start off with a fresh battery. That way, you've got a fresh dose of battery juice in there.
Yep. Awesome. Great. And I know we'll get into more of this in the future, but let's talk EDC. That's always a fun topic. And I just yesterday we had a whole conversation about EDC, but how deep do you want to go about EDC? Because I know the topic was about adjusting your EDC, right?
Yeah, I think we're talking about modifying your EDC, like making modifications to the gun that you carry every day, and kind of do's and don'ts. And I think primarily we're talking about handguns, obviously, because that's pretty much what we carry every day, right? Of course, we've got the rifles that on standby, but most folks aren't walking around with a rifle every day. So we're primarily talking about making modifications to your EDC, to your everyday gun. And, there's a lot of aftermarket stuff out there, and there's a lot of great stuff out there. Triggers, barrels, grips, sights, all kinds of stuff. There's so many cool things you can do to kind of, trick out your gun and make it perform better or look better, and things like that. The question is, I think for the sake of tonight, is what is acceptable for an everyday carry gun versus what would be an acceptable for a competition gun or just a planking or a play gun. And I think there needs to be a line there on what you do or don't do to a gun that you're going to rely your life on, that's going to get beat up, like in a holster, like an appendix or a hip or an ankle or in a purse or something like that. It's got a lot of wear and tear. It's getting beat up on a regular basis. And what modifications are going to compromise the integrity of the gun? That's definitely something to think about. And, what type of modifications may increase your perceived liability, almost like a hair trigger or something like that. So let's kind of dig into that. Like I know, Brian, I know you appreciate a good trigger. I know you're good sights and good grips, things like that. So those modifications are pretty benign. I think probably most, if not all, your carry guns, you've done those type of things too, I'm sure. I've helped you with some of those. So those type of things are generally acceptable. Let's start with triggers. I'll use this one as an example. So this is a little Glock 43. 9mm Glock right there. And this is a gun I carry occasionally. It's not, I mean, I've got a few different guns I carry on a regular basis, but this is one of the guns I do carry occasionally. And has it been modified? Yes, it has. The two big things I've done to this gun are better. This particular one doesn't have red on it, but better sights, brighter sights. For me, I like a bright red tritium dot in the front. So they're better sights and a better trigger. So putting different sights on your gun, does that increase liability? My opinion is no. So no issues that I can see putting a better quality sight on your gun that's aesthetically more pleasing on your eyes, allows you to line up on the target better. I don't see any issues there whatsoever. And that's a modification that's generally accepted as cool and okay to do, like no issue there. So I don't see any harm in putting, better sights or sights that you like better on your gun. Really no harm there. Now I'm gonna pause for just a second. If you don't have the mechanical aptitude to be doing these type of modifications, then seek some professional guidance for somebody that knows what they're doing.
Take it to the local store. Local gunsmith.
Yeah, exactly. Local gunsmith, local armorer. I used to teach armorers courses back in the day quite a bit. And I used to start the armorers class out with saying, okay, who in here would have a hard time changing your oil in your truck or changing a tire on the side of the highway? And if you would have a hard time with that, then you shouldn't be messing around with tools and guns, all right? Because those are pretty easy tasks, right? So like taking the sights off this Glock pistol or SIG pistol or, something like that, or taking the trigger out, put a different trigger on, that requires mechanical skill and some special tools and things like that. And if you don't have that mechanical aptitude or knowledge, seek professional guidance. There's a lot of great resources out there on the YouTube and the internet and stuff like that. But if in doubt, seek some professional guidance, especially if it's something you're going to rely your life on, like an EDC type of gun, something like that. But sights are fairly easy to do. You do need some special tools, but pretty benign project, meaning there's not much liability associated with changing your sights out that I can see. Now, the other thing that I certainly appreciate, and I think most shooters do, is a good quality trigger.
Yep.
Nothing I hate more than a shitty trigger. All right, so a good quality trigger. I know you got a great one on that one right there. Is that an Apex, Brian? I think that's the Apex on yours.
The 960. 965.
Yeah, so the 365. Yeah, a good quality trigger. I think most guys appreciate a good quality trigger. So that is something I like. So on some of my guns, I do have an aftermarket trigger like this 43 I just picked up a second ago. It's got an Apex trigger on it. The trigger from factory just didn't feel good to me. It felt, not that it was too heavy, it just felt clunky. Like the brake didn't allow me to keep the gun as steady as I'd like when I'm moving the trigger. All right, I really had to work for it to get it, and I appreciate a better trigger. So this isn't like a competition or a hair trigger or anything like that. It's of course just a clearance safe. It's a nice trigger. It's got a nice brake on it. It's got a nice reset on it. It's metal versus plastic. It feels better on my finger. All right, and I feel like I can manipulate that trigger better than I could the stock trigger. Any liability associated with that I see? No. It's not a hair trigger. It's not an ultralight trigger. It's a duty grade trigger, and actually Apex in this case, and a lot of the other trigger companies out there like Timney and Geisley and things like that. They have different categories of triggers, like competition series trigger, carry/duty trigger. My recommendation, if you're going with one of those manufacturers, is for EDC gun is get the duty grade trigger versus the competition trigger. I got a great example right here. A buddy of mine sent this one to me. This is a Timney trigger. All right, this is for Glock Gen 5, and this trigger, I've got it in one of my guns, and what an awesome trigger. Light, crisp, and it's got adjustments on it. Awesome trigger. I feel good going to the range and plink with that, shooting a competition, something like that, but not the trigger that it says competition series. All right, not the trigger I'm going to put in my gun I carry for defense or on duty or anything like that. I don't feel like that's responsible, one, but two, more importantly, could be prone to failure. Like this trigger is a great trigger, and Timney makes an incredible trigger. They call this the competition series, though. Comes little comes little tools, little screws, and it has adjustments on it. So there are adjustments on it, which means that adjustments could come out of whack, things like that. So we don't want to get in a situation like that. Whereas like there are duty grade triggers, like from Apex, Timney, Geisy, things like that. They're just basically drop in, take out the old trigger, drop in this one. There's no adjustments. It's it's replace in kind essentially, and it's duty grade. And what that better trigger is going to do, it's going to feel better. It's going to, when you're lining up that red dot or those iron sights, when you take aim, moving that trigger, the art of moving the trigger without moving the gun is going to be easier to do if you have a nicer trigger. Not that it has to be light. It just smooth is going to make all the difference in the world. So I definitely appreciate a good quality trigger in a gun, and I don't see anything wrong with modifying or upgrading to a better trigger that's duty or carry grade type of trigger in your guns.
So let's clarify too, though, because you said it a couple times. I want to make sure everybody understands, because you said you don't see that as being a liability. You're talking about legal liability, correct?
Yes, I'm talking about legal liability.
Yeah.
So you could see it playing out. Shooting, violent situation, shots fired type of thing, and you got like a hair competition trigger. It could even if you did everything absolutely right and the trigger worked perfectly and you did everything perfectly, it could. A defense, or a state, depending on what side of the street you're on for that circumstance, could potentially use that against you. Isn't it in fact true you got a hair trigger on your gun, Adam? That's a competition trigger you got. So I could see how an attorney, could bring that up in a trial or something like that, even though I think we all understand that, it's kind of BS, but it certainly could possibly be used against you and seen as a negative.
Yep.
All right. So that's what I'm saying there.
Okay. Perfect.
Now some guns, you need a gunsmith to make the trigger better. Like a SIG classic line, for instance, or a lot of revolvers, a gunsmith is going to hone things, smooth things out, grease things up, and make things smoother, do different things, use different types of springs and things like that. You really need to seek professional guidance on that. Unless you've got gunsmith or armorer, preferably gunsmith after your name, you probably shouldn't be doing. If you're getting, I got one right here. Look at that. If you're getting out the Dremel tool to work on your gun, right, and you don't have some gunsmith training, then you shouldn't be getting out the Dremel tools. Files, Dremel tools, no good.
Even changing some of these sights, because these are tight, and it's sometimes it's nice to have the rig and the tool that they use to get these out. Like I had this one changed by an armor. Like I didn't change this myself. I mean, I just, like, you know what? Here's $20. Go ahead and change that for me.
Yeah, and that would definitely be my recommendation. Like I've got that level of training, so I do my own mods and things like that because I'm very comfortable and got a lot of experience with it. But if you don't have it and you don't have the tools, definitely seek professional guidance on
also, if you don't want it all scratched up and banged up, like I've seen a lot of people do trying to do this. That's a big part too.
I can always tell you, somebody hands you a gun and you look at the screws and it looks like a squirrel's been chewing on them, or got scratches all over the slide. It's definitely noticeable. So you don't want to aesthetically mess with your gun.
I know you're going to keep going through stuff, but like for me, the important pieces for my everyday carry guns are a few things. One is good sights, so I've changed the sights on here. Obviously, I put a red dot on it, but it wasn't critical for me. But good sights were important, and night sights, nice Trijicon night sights. I did change the trigger out, and a light. That was mission critical for me. Those are like just the four most important things for me. Then it goes on to what I want is as many rounds as I can get into it, that is light, reliable, and then it's easy for me to carry. And that, and of course in this one we've got the extra mag, but like those are the most important things to me. What are the other most important things to you? You talked about sights, trigger.
Yeah. So you hit the nail on the head, Brian. Like things like lights and like lights specifically on a handgun is more of an accessory than a modification. But in my eyes, for our primary if you can get away with it with size, I really like to have a light, on my carry guns. I really want that personally. I think it's that important. Not that I feel naked if I don't have a light on my carry gun, but most, if not all, well, most of my carry guns have lights on. But other modifications besides sights and triggers, a lot of people like to do things with their grips. So here's an example right here. So this is actually my SWAT gun.
What do they call that? Stippling or something?
Yeah, stippling. So
because a lot of them come with this way now, right? I mean, they're pretty.
Yeah, most of them come fairly aggressive, and they have a nice texture on them. But a lot of guys, they want something more aggressive or less aggressive, or more stippled in certain places, so you could have somebody do a stipple job. Like I just on this, G45, which is of course 9mm. With this gun, I use. It comes with different back straps. I like the tang, but I don't like all the thickness it adds down here. So I took the back strap, I cut the back strap in half, and I put it on, and I shaved a little off the bottom. It just feels good to me. It's an outside accessory, changing the feel of it and the web of my hand a little bit. It's not doing anything to the performance, the function of the gun, so no issues there. It's literally, for me, I like the way it feels. So no harm, no foul in that. Here's another example, very rudimentary example, but I think those of you who know me, Brian, you certainly do. This gun's on my ankle every day, all day, has been for a whole lot of years. My little Smith J frame right here, but it's got rubber grips on it, but I've got it's almost like hockey tape I've got around it. I just like the way it feels on there, and the way the gun feels in your hand is super important. You want the gun to be comfortable in your hand, so making modifications to the grips, whether it's literally slapping on some new grip panels or having it stippled either by yourself or someone knows what they're doing, or something as simple like what I did with this wheel gun is I got a little bit of hockey tape around the grip. It just gives me a little bit more grip, I guess you could say. I like it, so doing little things like that make the gun feel better in your hand is good. Those are okay things to do. They're not doing anything to affect the function of the gun, so no issue there whatsoever. And changing out a grip, you don't need much mechanical aptitude to do that. Certainly to wrap some tape around a gun, you don't need much knowledge to do that. On the handgun side, there are certainly other things you could do. I got one example. A buddy of mine sent me a Agency Arms barrel. This is for one of my Glocks, but an Agency Arms barrel. It's like, I don't know, it's like a few $100 or something like that for this barrel, and it's supposed to shoot lights out. I guess increased accuracy. It certainly looks cool. It's fluted. It's nice and shiny up front. It looks cool. It looks cool in the gun. Are most people going to appreciate the performance that this will give you versus your stock Glock barrel, for instance, for an EDC gun? I think probably not. But if it's in the budget for you and you slap in this barrel, it's literally take out a barrel, replace a barrel. So it's not modification. You're literally just field stripping a gun. So I don't see any issues there. If you're not getting the performance you like out of your factory barrel, I think most people probably wouldn't have much need for that unless you just want to try something out. But other modifications you could to the innards of the gun, there are, but I wouldn't recommend it. You wouldn't want to do anything with a carry gun that's going to affect the function of the gun or the safeties on the gun. For instance, disabling a safety feature on a gun. We want to be, obviously cautious bad idea about doing something like that. So those type of things, not a great idea. Now, however, have I done that? I absolutely have. Actually, this may be one of those examples right there. So Smith & Wesson, when they were in mass, they recently got out of that state, if you've been following the news. So good for them. But when they were in mass, one of the requirements was to have like a little key to turn your gun on and off on this little side window. All right. I disabled that. All right. Because I didn't want my gun to be key activated, essentially. So I disabled that feature, but that wasn't a safety that's per se.
Different to me.
Yeah,
that was more of a state being intrusive to try to lock up who could sell guns in their state, so to speak. So they were required to put this extra thing on there. That's different than taking a Glock with how that safety works, and it's specifically made in a way that safety should be there, and removing the safety out of the middle of the Glock.
Yeah.
That's a very
Yeah,
different thing to me, you know?
absolutely, definitely different. And you wouldn't want to do that. Like I've seen guys take their 1911 grip safeties and pin them shut. Now, if that's a competition gun or a blanket gun, no big deal. But if that's a carry gun, I think you're setting yourself up for failure. Those are things to think about. But there's a lot of modifications you could certainly make. Just use caution, seek professional guidance, do a little bit of research. If you don't have that mechanical aptitude, definitely find somebody that does to do those type of things. Oh, another one I wanted to mention when it comes to modifications of your gun, and this is more of a, or primarily is going to be just how it looks type of thing, is getting your guns, Cerakoted or painted essentially. Like this is a good example right here. My little wheel gun I carry all day, every day, as a backup on my ankle. This gun has been Cerakoted by my friend Jay over at Ren Arms here in New Hampshire. He Cerakoted this. Actually, I think. Just once. It was silver, but I carried it on my ankle so long, it was just all beat up. It just looked horrible. So I had Jay, who's a professional Cerakote artist. He's got the setup for it. He Cerakoted it, and it's got kind of a two-tone, gray, black, and it just looks nice, but also you're getting a nice, good protective finish on it. And it looks. I like a gun that looks good, right? I know a lot of folks will do it with their pistol. They'll get it Cerakoted or painted or Duracoated. There's different products out there, in like a OD olive drab or like a coyote tan or something like that, or a two-tone, and it looks cool. I don't see any issue with that. Now, modifications that I highly recommend that you don't make, which are more accessories than anything, would be anything that could be deemed like offensive. Like I've seen dust covers, talking to the dust cover on your ARs, these things that flip open. Like when it flips open, it says some statement on it, like, something. You can use your imagination. But I've seen things, printed on these dust covers that can be offensive and, kind of antagonistic in a way. So I would avoid things like that, skull and crossbones, those type of things. I don't think personally, in my opinion, I don't think those type of things have a place on your everyday carry gun. I would keep your guns conservative looking. Not to say they can't have some flair, so to speak, and be cool looking and good looking, but I would avoid anything that could be seen as offensive, I guess is the best way I could put it.
We're talking about our ADC guns and stuff. I mean, we've got our toys in the safe, and we got our Boris computers on it. We've got our bling on those are fun. Like I have a Cabot. I have a beautiful Cabot 1911, with Damascus and all that.
Yeah.
But I'm like, that's not my EDC. That's
no.
a collector.
That's
I
cool.
love having it. It's fun building those, but
would you pay for that Cabot, Brian?
Oh, well over $25,000.
Yeah, that's an expensive piece. That's a beautiful gun, though. Yep.
But your point is this is my EDC. This is the one I'm taking with me everywhere. This is the one I rely on.
Yeah.
And this is the one that'll get used against me in the court of law if I have an issue or something. This is the one that's going to be scrutinized. This is the one that has to work.
Yeah.
This is a very different firearm to me than everything else in my safe, alongside my bedside and my home defense. Like those are everything you're saying is how I treat these. Everything else in my safe for fun and hobby and everything else, and I actually treat them all differently in my mind. That's just how I am.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. It's and that's the way. Conservative, only make modifications that are going to increase the shootability of the gun and the feel of the gun for you. So those type of things, I think, were generally accepted is okay. It's kind of like you got a work truck and you got a play truck. This is your work truck. This is the one that goes to work. It needs to be functional. It needs to work. But save the bling for all your off duty toys, so to speak.
Awesome. All right, and I know that we could talk for days on this. I know we got some more episodes coming up where we're going to be getting into our other EDCs and stuff. So in the last few minutes that we have, I want to talk to you a little bit more about flying in your private aircraft with your firearms. And there's just, it's more and more stuff keeps coming up, more and more topics. And we just had a conversation the other day. Now, I apply the safe passage laws to when I'm flying in my airplane, just like I would if I was getting in my car and driving from here to New Hampshire. When I'm getting in one of these planes and flying from here to New Hampshire, I treat them the same way. I'd love to get your thoughts on it, because I know I just had conversations with a gentleman that was flying in an airplane that he has to stop twice, and he has hollow point ammunition with him, all that kind of stuff. Like, I don't do that. If I'm flying, I will have just my standard, FMJs or something, and then I get ammo on the other end when I get there, or if a family member has it or whatever. I don't fly or drive with anything that is going to cause me a problem if I have to land, if I have to refuel, or if I have weather and I have to stop somewhere and now I have to go to a hotel room, or I got a maintenance issue and now I'm landing in New Jersey. I'd probably rather crash in the ocean than land in New Jersey with this firearm. So I know I'm joking, everybody, but my point, I'm kind of being serious at the same time. My point is you're being a pilot goes to a whole nother level of responsibility when you're also now carrying firearms and ammunition. So, somebody just talked about that, and it was like he had all kinds of hollow ammunition with him, and he was going to fly and land twice. I'm conservative. I wouldn't do that. But I just wanted to get your thoughts on, how would I, should I, and even when I fly in my own airplanes, I lock them up just like I do if I'm getting on an airline. Now, obviously, I'm not getting my tickets for the airlines and all that, but I lock them and everything so that and it's not just for any legal reasons, which is my start, but it's also just for safety. If there's other people on your airplane, well, you want it out in a bag in the back, and you ask somebody to grab a water, and they reach down in there and they happen to pull out your firearm, or there's kids on the plane. I mean, there's so many variables that I think we should think about, and I just loaded you up with a whole bunch of questions there.
No, that's all right.
But let's start with the ammo,
Yeah, I'm tracking 100%. Well, with the ammo specifically, like hollow point ammunition, like I think we know, like hollow point ammunition in the state of New Jersey, for instance, is unlawful to possess. Even if so there's no exception to that, really. So if you're traveling from state in the north to a state in the south and you want to go through a state in New Jersey, there's no lawful way to bring hollow point ammunition through that state. Even if it is locked and separated and out of reach and all that stuff, it doesn't apply because the National Safe Transportation Act, that law of travel, doesn't permit you to possess items that are unlawful in that jurisdiction.
That particular state. It says it right in the first sentence.
And that's where the problem is. So one thing you could do is, just stay out in New Jersey. That'll get that job done. Like with hollow point specifically, there are probably others I don't know off the top of my head. But New Jersey is one of the few that strictly outlaw that product.
Well, you can't take this into Massachusetts.
Yeah, well, you can possess it in mass under safe transportation. You just can't carry it, can't be loaded, you can't buy it. But if there's some exceptions. It's just a narrow window. So a good bet is to carry, or if you're going to be traveling, is to have something that's conservative enough where it's not highly regulated, it's not unlawful to possess in the jurisdictions that you plan on going to. So things like AR type of rifles, semi-automatic rifles, large capacity magazines, hollow point ammunition, things like that. There are a lot of these type of things there are a lot of states that don't allow even possession of these things without special permits and things like that. And I'm not just talking to carry it, but to actually just have it in your possession, like in your car, locked even, in your airplane on a ramp somewhere, right? So that is possession.
Okay.
So there's, go ahead.
Sorry to interrupt you, but you said something that is like another myth and none of that, we've had members actually text, email in and say, however, if I don't leave the airport and I'm on the ground, that's okay. That's not necessarily true, is it?
Well, the big difference, Brian, is it's your aircraft, you're the pilot, it's your plane. It's no different than your car. Now, if I was flying JetBlue, for instance, and
Yeah, that's different.
they make an emergency landing in New Jersey, and I don't have possession of my baggage,
Right.
all right, because it's in a bag on a carousel or down below, that's not possession,
No,
right?
this is in my airplane.
Yeah, exactly. So that's where it's different. So if you are on a ramp in New Jersey, for instance, Newark, and you're in your plane and you have hollow point ammunition in your airplane, you're in violation of state law, right? So that could be a problem. So you need to be cautious. My best advice is just stay away from the states that you know are going to be an issue. However, for a pilot like yourself, Brian, emergencies happen. You need to be prepared for that. And if you're over New Jersey airspace and things go sideways and you have to make a landing, you got to do what you got of your life, obviously. I guess what I would say is, if this is like life or death, like I'm do I crash? You made that joke earlier. Do I crash in the ocean, or do I land in Newark? I think I'll probably land in Newark. I think I'm not sure. But if it's planning, if you can do your best to plan to stay away from those states, obviously, is going to be the best way to go, and avoid having something that's going to be controversial in those states to begin with. Like an AR or something like that. So yeah, you definitely got to use some caution with that. Definitely different than checked baggage in a commercial airline versus it's your plane, because it's being in your plane is no different than being in a car. Once it's on the ground, that's yours. You're responsible possession-wise, as far as the law is concerned, with what's in it. It's no different than if you're on the New Jersey Turnpike, for instance. In the air, it doesn't matter. In the air, a state doesn't have the once you're in there, it's not like you're in New Jersey airspace. You're in federal U.S. air. Yep. All right, and jurisdictionally, in the air, it's the jurisdiction of the feds. For prosecution reasons, whoever you took off from, whatever state that was, and land, both those states could have some play into like prosecution or charging if something were to happen on an aircraft. All right, but as far as what laws you follow for, in the aircraft itself, in the air, that's it's federal.
Yep. Yeah, good point. And we'll do. You just mentioned a little bit about airlines, and we actually have some lessons already inside the membership platform, and we'll do some more about, like, this case is a perfect example of this case is what I take on the airlines, and here's the airline tags from Delta and all the different airlines and stuff, and I actually print and keep on the case here the TSA rules, because there's a lot of people at the airlines that don't know it. In my safe passage law is printed inside this case too. So I usually have these all on this case as I travel with it, and we'll get into that on a different episode, but you just mentioned it, so I thought I'd show that a little bit. But
that's a great thing to do. I've got those printouts inside my Pelican and Storm case as well. That's excellent advice, Brian. Definitely do that, because you're right.
At an issue, you can say, well, here you go. It's right here. Here's your own TSA laws. Would you like to look it up in your own book? But this is it. So what's your question?
Exactly. Yeah. That's good advice. Yep, definitely.
Cool. This was awesome.
Good stuff.
I think we only covered a fraction of what we could have covered. I know we're going to be doing more. Right now you hear the sheriff's helicopter landing right in front of the hangar here.
So wicked cool. That's awesome.
Sorry about that. But anyway, this is so awesome, Adam. This is great information. Thanks for being on. And I know we got a whole bunch of stuff scheduled for members and stuff. We're going to get into even more of EDC, because one episode we're doing here soon is EDC, but also EDC in your airplane. Because my EDC actually changes a little bit when I'm jumping in the airplane to go. I mean, obviously I have my typical, med kits and my tourniquets and things like that, but a bunch of other stuff ends up being in here, like an EPIRB, sat phones and things like that when I'm putting this in the airplane. Like some of these are empty right now, as you can see, and that's where sat phones, EPIRBs and stuff fill this whole thing up. So my EDC kind of alters a little bit for, am I going off-roading? Am I just around town every day? Or is it jumping in the plane? And I have it set up where it's real easy for me. My plane EDC boom, 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 drop it, pick it up, go to the plane. So I can't wait to go over that with you, because when it comes to EDCs and what we carry every day with our firearms and stuff, I know you're a master at that, which is why I call you Master Yoda. But
Yeah,
can't wait to have that conversation.
Yeah, definitely looking forward to that. It's definitely more than the gun, that's for sure. There's a lot more to consider for EDC than the gun. This is one of many tools, that's for sure. So yeah, this was awesome, Ryan. Very cool.
Awesome. Well, thanks for coming on. Thanks for everything you're doing for the members, and looking forward to seeing you on the next one, Adam.
Absolutely. Sounds good. All right. See you guys.
Take care. Bye.